everybody. So I do actually endorse the Extractigator. I probably should be getting commission for them at this point. I've probably sold so many for them. So yeah, my name's Clay Cutting. As I was introduced, I am an invasive species technician, particularly on land. I do in the forest mostly. I'm mainly funded by the Forested Landscape Priority Place. So thanks very much, Julian, for coordinating that program. So one major, just gonna see if I can get this up a little more. There. So one major species which I'm monitoring the landscape for here in Prince Edward Island is the emerald ash borer. And it's a very devastating insect. It's one that we don't have yet on Prince Edward Island, but that is quite close to the threshold here. So I'm just going to be talking today about preparing for the emerald ash borer's onset on Prince Edward Island, what you could do on your property and socially as well. So I really like this picture. It's got the Confed Bridge in the background, so I thought it was perfect for bringing in the emerald ash borer into Prince Edward Island's consciousness. So this is the emerald ash borer. This is what we're dealing with. The emerald ash borer is a Buprestid beetle, so it's a member of the Buprestidae family. That's what that means. Native to northeastern Asia. Originally introduced into Canada on, they believe, wood packaging materials. So it's probably something like a pallet. And it was first identified in 2002, though they believe it was probably there for around 5-10 years before that. So the reason we are so concerned about the emerald ash borer is that statistic on the third bullet point there, that it is fatal in over 99% of the infestations in North America. So that's a really devastating pest. It's eating itself out of house and home, and it will probably lead to the functional extinction of ash species here in North America if nothing is done to prevent that. So it will take around 1 to 4 years from the initial infestation to take the tree down, depending on various factors, environmental factors, where the tree is planted, how healthy it is otherwise. And this is the insect on the right-hand side. It's a very shiny guy, and I have some specimens over on the table if you want to take a look. So the emerald ash borer is a pest which is federally regulated. That means that the federal government has identified it as a significant ecological and economic concern, that they have impacted the spread of certain goods that they believe will lead to the spread of emerald ash borer. So this is a map that they put out identifying the infested places in Canada. So the focus has shifted away from eradicating the species, and we're now just trying to slow the spread within the country to places that are uninfested, such as Prince Edward Island. Out on the west coast in Vancouver and Burnaby, you've got emerald ash borer in the center of the country. In Winnipeg, on the west side of Lake Superior and Thunder Bay, all of southern Ontario, Quebec, almost all of southern New Brunswick, and then Halifax County over in Nova Scotia is infested. And so if you're moving any ash parts, any firewood of any species, out of these areas into an uninfested place, you need a permit, a specific permit to do that. There are certain requirements that your product will have to meet to ensure they're not infested. So, how will emerald ash borer arrive on Prince Edward Island? It's probably going to be people that bring it here, unfortunately. So that's why awareness and outreach is really so important. So by nature, it really only spreads 2 to 5 kilometers for the most part. The maximum flight distance is 10 kilometers, and I don't believe there's any span of the Northumberland Strait that's anything less than 10 kilometers. So that's why I believe it probably will have to be a human-mediated introduction. So how will that come? By far and away, the predominant means of spreading emerald ash borer is in firewood. So we really don't recommend bringing firewood from the mainland over to Prince Edward Island, but other wood products certainly could spread the emerald ash borer as well. So the earlier we detect it, the more likely we are to actually be able to prevent this spread. So that's why getting out on the landscape and looking for it now is really important. It could already be here undetected. So the hosts of the emerald ash borer, it only affects true ash trees, so you're not going to be seeing it in American, European, or Showy Mountain ash on Prince Edward Island, or any other tree that looks like an ash. It's just ash trees, and on Prince Edward Island we have 4 species, 2 which are native, black and white ash, and 2 which are planted, green and European ash. So this on the right-hand side is a picture of the ash seed. So it was a really good seed year for ash last year. There was a lot of seed produced. So the emerald ash borer adult, we'll introduce him. This is the ash borer adult on that penny there. Penny for scale, I think people still know what pennies look like, though it's been a minute since they've been in circulation. It's a very bright green beetle. It's also known as a jewel beetle, so you can tell where it gets that name. It can lose its color over time if it's been dead for a while, though, so if you see one that maybe still looks like the emerald ash borer that's dead, you could still report that to us. It would still be worthwhile to do so. The body is very almost bullet-shaped, has a very large eyes on a flat face, and it gets around just under half the width of the penny, or just under a centimeter wide. long rather, sorry. So this is going to be active from mid-May until mid-September, so it's probably out of the landscape right now if it is active. And just next week I'm going to be setting up one of our emerald ash borer prism traps, which you can see just over on the side here. It's a 3-sided sticky trap, which I'll introduce later in the presentation. The adults, when they leave the tree, they create a very distinctive D-shaped exit hole. So you may see a lot of little holes on your different trees. This is indicative of insect presence, and the exit hole of the emerald ash borer has a distinctive capital D shape, just like the D on the penny there, representing that's from the Denver Mint. I don't know if any coin people in the audience. So on the left-hand side, we have the emerald ash borer, but as with any insect, any invasive species, you do have some lookalikes on the landscape, some things that can confuse your identification of the emerald ash borer. And so on the right-hand side of the screen, those 3 others are actually native species to Prince Edward Island. So these are gorilla species which exist on Prince Edward Island, don't cause a serious environmental impact, and they can be very, very difficult to determine between. So if you are unsure, it's always better to report the species than to not, because we'd rather get 100 reports that don't lead to anything than miss 1 report that would have actually led to a positive detection. So the emerald ash borer, as with any insect, lays eggs. So we've got eggs on the tree here. They're very difficult to see, but it's just above where that lady is pointing with her knife, those tiny little orangish orbs. They're very, very small, and they're probably not the thing that you're going to be seeing, but I just wanted to introduce them anyway. They're going to be existing on the landscape for around 2 weeks in June and July. They're laid in the outer bark of ash trees, and whenever they hatch into larvae. So the larvae is a worm-like larvae. Again, I've got some specimens over on my table if you want to, take a look. When it's full grown, it's around 3 centimeters long. And they're a flattened larvae, very worm-like, creamy white color, and they have a set of pincers on the front that they use to move through the bark, underneath the outer bark, and below mainly eating the cambium layer. So these are the overwintering stage. They're the stage that will persist in the tree throughout the winter time, and they can really be the main source of spread as well for the emerald ash borer. So this is what will be hiding within a log of firewood. And if you were to bring a log of firewood which had a male and a female emerald ash borer larvae within it, you could certainly start an entirely new infestation on the other end. So the mature larvae, when they are done feeding, they will fold themselves up into this J shape, which we see on the right-hand side of the screen, and they will begin to pupate. And they pupate in April or May. They pupate for a couple of weeks, and they emerge thereafter as adults, which we already saw on the last slide. So the larvae are the main damage-causing agent of the emerald ash borer life cycle, so this is really what's killing the trees. And it's those galleries underneath the bark. They make a very distinctive S shape, as we can see on the left-hand picture there, a serpentine or an S shape, very much like a snake kind of winding its way around. And you can also see after a lot of feeding, the sloughing off of the bark too. So some other signs and symptoms of the emerald ash borer which you may want to be paying attention to. Again, it only affects true ash trees, so if you're seeing it on a tree that's not a true ash species, well, you're not dealing with the emerald ash borer. If you need help with IDing your ash tree, I can certainly help with that too. I actually had that in this presentation, but I just had too much to say, so I had to get it down. Those D-shaped exit holes I mentioned are in the bottom picture right here. You can see that they have a distinctly flat edge on a rounded edge on the bottom there. You can also see things like bark cracking, and this can be from the buildup of the larvae within the wood feeding, causing scar tissue to form underneath the bark, causing that bark to split and crack out. You can also see something like blonding, which I'll show on the next slide, and that's woodpecker feeding. Woodpecker feeding is a great indication that you have some insect inside of your tree. It may not be the emerald ash borer, but it's certainly a sign that there's something in there. You can have epicormic shoots, you can have loss of the crown, usually beginning at the top of the tree, so you'll start to see dead sticks up in the top canopy, and gradually the crown will be worn away over time. And again, this is that blonding effect, which I mentioned on the right-hand side of the screen here. So this is evidence of a woodpecker feeding, which is evidence of an insect infestation. On the left-hand side, you've got the emerald ash borer adult again, and this is what the feeding of the adult looks like. There's notches out of the leaves, and you can see the poop on the leaf as well. Okay, so I just wanted to differentiate these signs and symptoms into direct signs and symptoms and indirect signs and symptoms. So on the left-hand side, the direct signs and symptoms are the actual insect itself, so the larvae, the eggs, or the adult bug, those D-shaped exit holes, and the serpentine galleries. These indirect signs and symptoms are still worth investigating for sure, but they may be signs of other things as well. So this can include the epicormic shoots, bark cracking, blonding, and canopy loss that I mentioned on the previous slide. Prism trap monitoring, again, this is what we are doing at the Prince Edward Island Invasive Species Council starting next week. We've been doing this for 3 years past, and it's essentially a sticky trap mounted high up in an ash tree. This is our coordinator Chase, setting up in Freeland Natural Area. We're happy to partner with the Island Nature Trust to set up some traps on the landscape this year. So we've got them from, I think Freeland would be the furthest west, and then all the way down to the Selkirk area. That's where our traps are. So we're trying to get as widely distributed across the island as we can. CFIA is also doing this, so you may see them from CFIA on the landscape too. So these are going to be placed out from June to September. They have a pheromone attractant in there, and the pheromone attractant smells like a lady emerald ash borer. And the color, I guess, is just what the male emerald ash borer likes. So this is the male emerald ash borer trap. There is a purple one for the ladies as well. We don't have any of those. So we don't actually have these available for people, but if you did want to do this, it is completely possible for private landowners to monitor their own trees. You can purchase these trap and lure setups from Synergy Semiochemicals, which is a company out of Quebec, I believe. So they sell the entire pheromone lure trap kit. It's pretty easy to set up. You just really need this very long pole. I guess that would probably be the crux of the biscuit. It's called Mr. Longarm. I really like him. Yeah. So yeah, this is usually better for early detection than visual monitoring alone. And I should have mentioned on the last slide, you can also check your pool filter for emerald ash borer. A lot of bugs get trapped in the pool filter, so checking it out for emerald ash borer could certainly be something to do there. And it's just on the top of this slide there. Okay, so just a bit of a dramatic picture here. So this is in Toledo, Ohio. It's a city street which has been all planted with ash. Ash is a very common urban planting. It grows really well in urban areas and it looks great, has great structure generally. And this is basically before and after. On the left-hand side before, and the right-hand side after an emerald ash borer infestation has come through. People's property values have probably been pretty significantly impacted. On the left-hand side of the screen, we've got a fully healthy tree. On the right-hand side of the screen, we've got a fully dead tree from emerald ash borer, just to show you guys from a distance how the decline of your tree might manifest. You can just see that over time, the crown of the tree, especially beginning at the top, is kind of worn away, gradually down to nothing, as we see on the right-hand side of the screen. So treatment. We could talk about invasive species all day, I always like to say, but ultimately we want to do something about them. So treatment is necessary to keep your ash on the landscape in an infestation scenario. So I really recommend that before you attempt treatment, especially since we don't already know it's on Prince Edward Island, that you confirm this with professionals before you do attempt that treatment or try to destroy the tree yourself. It could be very difficult for us to identify the insect after the tree's been destroyed. So really recommend reporting that. So uninfested trees will die within 4 years of infestation. That's just really the bottom line here. And chemical treatment is really our only sure option to keep a tree on the landscape in an infestation scenario. So you do have things that you can do to promote the health of your tree, silvicultural controls that you can take, which I'll talk about in the next slide. And there's biological controls that can be implemented in an infestation scenario, but biological controls will not eradicate the issue or completely get rid of it. They'll just reduce it or mitigate the spread. So silvicultural controls, I want to preface that I'm not an arborist or a forester, so highly recommend talking to one of those people for better advice. But there are certain things that are noted to be beneficial to an emerald ash borer infestation to promote the health of an ash stand. So I really recommend a forest inventory. So knowing where your ash are on the landscape before the emerald ash borer arrives here can be really important for conservation purposes. For example, if we know that there's an emerald ash borer on the landscape down the road, and we know that your trees exist and you've reported them to us, we can come to your house, tell you, hey, there's an emerald ash borer infestation down the road, or get in contact with you, and we can begin the process of checking your trees for the emerald ash borer to get a true delimitation of the extent of the infestation, to know where all the trees that are infested are on the landscape. Controlling invasive species is always a great idea in your woodlot to promote the health of the remaining native species. So that's a great way to promote ash health. Silvicultural practices like thinning and pruning can help improve the health of individual trees, which can make them more resistant to an infestation, or at least not resistant, I should say, but tolerant of the infestation. And we also recommend promoting biodiversity. If you have just a huge stand of ash, it's going to be really easy for the emerald ash borer to move from tree to tree. So if you have a very diverse stand, it may be more difficult for that emerald ash borer to find the next ash tree if there's hemlock, red maple, and yellow birch in between. So this is a document I recommend checking out. There's a lot of places that have been dealing with the emerald ash borer for a very long time, and there's an excellent wealth of information about the emerald ash borer's progress and infestation from those areas. So I highly recommend checking out Vermont's. They have a great ash management guidance for forest managers document. Insecticide treatment, I mentioned, is probably the only really great option to keep the emerald ash borer on the landscape. Professionally applied insecticides do exist, and I'll go over your options here. It's generally considered the best method to keep ash in the landscape in an emerald ash borer infestation, and within 25 kilometers of a known infestation, your trees are good candidates for treatment. If you treat before that, you're certainly welcome to do that, but you may be wasting your money and your time at this point. So within 25 kilometers is generally what we recommend. So trunk injected insecticides, so as this gentleman is doing on the right hand side of the screen, it's a product that is injected into the base of the tree, which is going to be systemically translocated throughout the entire tree, making the tree essentially poisonous to the emerald ash borer. So this will be not only poisonous to the emerald ash borer, but poisonous to other wood boring insects, so there is that caveat of non-target impacts potentially having, but the loss of ash could also be a massive impact to the forest as well, so pick your battle, I guess, in that respect. So how do you decide what to do? So if you have emerald ash borer on your property and you want to treat that, well, determining whether or not your tree is treatable is first and foremost. So if your tree has less than 50% of the crown remaining, it's not a good candidate for treatment. Some people say that even less than 30% of the crown remaining, more than 30% of the crown impacted would be untreatable. So you also have to think about things like what benefits the tree provides for you. Does it have good structure? Is it in a good place? Is it improving your property value? Does it have good wildlife benefit, etc.? So these are some of the things you think about when you are deciding whether or not to treat your trees. So these insecticides are best used preventatively, so before an actual infestation, although they can be used to address an infestation. You can have impacts to, sorry, lost my train of thought, but this is the equipment that you're going to be using most likely, or at least a professional will be using to inject your trees. So I really recommend consulting with professionals before attempting this. And you will need a pesticide applicator's license on Prince Edward Island, Class E or landscape class to conduct this work. So you may, for that reason, want to pursue professional help anyways. I'm not actually really aware of too many professionals who would be offering this service on Prince Edward Island right now. So if you are a professional who would be interested in offering this service, Lalaman Plant Care requires you to get trained up on their specific product, Triazin, and Arborjet as well with their Imajet product. So if you're looking to get into business in that respect, we definitely would like the support for private landowners. Yes?
I think Kurt Laird from Laird's Tree Service has done some Arborjet work for a couple of cities. I think he's the only one that does stem injection work that I'm aware of.
Yeah, me too.
I don't want to plug him, but I think he's the only one.
I think you're right, and so would definitely love some other players in the game. There's going to be probably in the future a glut for this, a want for the service. So we would love to have more people to direct people to. So chemical treatment can actually be, in many cases, just as costly as removing the tree. So it's something you should always consider, at least. So your options for chemical treatment, you do have 4 options that are approved for use in emerald ash borer on Prince Edward Island in Canada generally. Confidor 200 though is currently unavailable. The manufacturer wasn't making enough money, so they no longer produce that product. Top left, a lot of people are really enthusiastic about Triazin. So Triazin is a product, it's a naturally derived product created by the Canadian Forest Service. It comes from the neem tree, and that natural derivation is very attractive to a lot of people. Persists in the tree for around 1 to 2 years. And it's, again, a trunk-injected insecticide. On the bottom right, you've got Imajet. That is probably the most economically viable option for you at this particular point. It's a lot cheaper than the Triazin, despite the fact that it's not naturally derived. It's a neonicotinoid product, specifically imidacloprid, and a lot of people are fairly hesitant to use neonicotinoids in the landscape. Bottom left, Ace Cap is an option. I don't recommend it. It only provides 18 weeks of control, and it requires you to, every 18 weeks, hammer new caplets into the tree's bark, so it can be quite damaging as well. So generally don't recommend Ace Cap. Triazin and Imajet would be your best options. There is also biological controls which are being developed. So this is a pretty cool tool. This is a trap which has a fungus in it, and the fungus is called Bovaria bassiana, scientifically or commonly white muscadine disease, and this is what's known as a cosmopolitan fungus. So it's found all across Canada. It's not something new that you're introducing to the landscape. You're just mobilizing something that's already there to target the emerald ash borer. So the emerald ash borer will be attracted to this trap. There's a pheromone inside the trap. It'll enter that trap, and it'll be inoculated with this fungus, which will kill it within 7 days. It may, during those 7 days, interact with other emerald ash borer, spreading the fungus spores to those emerald ash borer as well. So it's an interesting biological protection tool. So what are we doing to keep emerald ash borer off Prince Edward Island? Well, basically everything I can think of that we can afford. We are a small nonprofit organization, so we are limited in our resources, but we try to get the most done that we can. We're currently in the process of creating an early detection response framework for emerald ash borer on Prince Edward Island, because again, the earlier we detect it, the more likely we are to be able to successfully respond. We want to promote monitoring, so if you folks are interested in getting out in your landscape, visually monitoring your trees for the emerald ash borer, or perhaps purchasing some of these traps, that's something we totally encourage. We want to conduct outreach activities like this. The more people that know about emerald ash borer, the more people can actually report emerald ash borer, and the more people that will talk about emerald ash borer to their friends. I think the loss of several tree species here in Prince Edward Island is a worthy discussion topic, so definitely get out and spread the word. We hope to collect best, most up-to-date information about emerald ash borer to share with you guys, and I hope that that has come through in this presentation, and identify high-risk and high-value ash stands. So what can you folks do to help? Well, you can report true ash presence to the Prince Edward Island. Again, if we know where ash is on the landscape, we can more effectively and more easily respond to an emerald ash borer infestation. So the more ash we're aware of, the more easily we will be able to delimit the infestation when it finally does arrive here on PEI. You can report the emerald ash borer to us, conduct monitoring, talk to your friends, neighbors. Don't move firewood. Again, that's the main way to spread emerald ash borer. Stay up to date, promote the health of your ash trees, and if you have seed, a lot of seed, perhaps report that to us. We may be interested in collecting that seed for conservation purposes. So if you discover the emerald ash borer, don't panic, ID it. ID is key with any invasive species infestation. Again, there are some lookalikes, so it's really important to report those sightings to us. So in this case, and just follow the emerald ash borer across. So you've discovered a new infestation, a new invasive species record for PEI. That would be this case. We want you to contact us immediately, and if you see a mobile adult insect, we want you to catch that in a sealed jar and place it in your freezer to make sure that it is killed. So collect a specimen, take photos, mark the location, freeze that specimen, and get in contact with us. Those are the 5 steps to complete in the event of an emerald ash borer sighting. So these are the ways in which you can contact me. You can contact me by email, by phone, but that is my personal cell, so don't sell it to any robocallers. By social media, we're on Instagram and Facebook as well, or on the iNaturalist app. And in this case, I really would prefer that you got in contact with me first and foremost directly, rather than finding it through iNaturalist. That would be pretty scary to wake up to, an iNatural support of emerald ash borer. Okay, so reporting ash populations. We are indeed looking for this information, so if you have any ash on your property, even as much as a single tree, we would love to hear about this. You can contact me again by any one of these means. We've got business cards over on the table. Check it out. We're online. PEIinvasives.com is a great place to get information about invasive species on Prince Edward Island. We've got a lot of profiles of invasive species on there, so check them out. One of the emerald ash borer, which is quite extensive in my opinion. I just updated it this year, and very soon we will be having this complimentary document available, which is a survey and monitoring protocol for the emerald ash borer, which we worked with under the Forest and Landscape Priority Place for Species at Risk on PEI. So great project there. Again, this is what you can do to help. If anybody needs to take a picture, feel free. We got one picture. Yeah. Sorry, everybody. All right, cool. And just a reminder, this is something I really want to hammer home here. Firewood is the main spreader for emerald ash borer, and it's probably going to be someone bringing firewood from the mainland that spreads emerald ash borer here. So we really would like to discourage this behavior. So I'd just like to thank you for the time. My name's Clay. You can reach me anytime. I'm a public service. Despite I'm not government, I still am a public service, I'd like to think. So get in contact with me anytime for information about anything invasive species related, and especially the emerald ash borer. Thank you. Before I take questions, I just wanted to mention about giant hogweed, just because it was brought up earlier. So in southern Kings County, we do have a lookalike of giant hogweed, which is very, very common. It's not giant hogweed, it's woodland angelica that you're seeing in all the ditches. So it does really look like giant hogweed. It is very large, but this is actually another member of the carrot family, which does have similar impacts to your skin, woodland angelica. So this is something which we are working on, and just on Monday, I actually have a meeting with the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure to implement a timed mowing to suppress the spread of this plant throughout the landscape, and so it is something we are working on. Giant hogweed, on the other hand, we've only got 5 known populations of on Prince Edward Island, and in my opinion, we are on the road to eradication with that plant. Very happy to say that. All known populations of giant hogweed specifically are in serious decline because of our monitoring management efforts. So happy to say that. You can see over here this white suit and the mask. That's what I get out in the hogweed in. Yeah, it's not so great on a day like today, but on a cloudy day, it's not too bad. I like getting out. But yeah, if you do see giant hogweed, if you do see anything that looks like giant hogweed, still worth reporting. We would love to hear about it. Just let us know. And the woodland angelica issue is something we are thinking about for sure.